When thinking about the offshore lifestyle, one of the first steps that comes to mind, and one of the easiest steps that can be often, is offshore banking. Now, because this is not something that will require you to move somewhere else, it will not require you to uproot your life, it will not require you to restructure your company, it's often kind of defined as the easiest first step. My name is Jelena, and for the past 5 years, I've been working with 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and helping them move offshore, legally reduce their taxes, obtain another citizenship, and go where they're treated best. If you're somebody who is looking into making this first step towards being a global citizen, then subscribe to our channel and follow us for new and exciting updates. Now, when you think about offshore banking, you obviously think about some off-the-charts islands like Seychelles and Nevis and Cayman Islands, but it's not always that. Offshore banking can be in different jurisdictions. It just means that you're banking in a jurisdiction that's different from your jurisdiction of residence or citizenship. Now, in the past, many countries did accept non-residents even without ties to a certain country. However, nowadays it's becoming more and more difficult to open an account in a certain country as a non-resident. A big kind of exception here are wealth management banks, which are open towards different nationalities, different jurisdictions. Even if you're not a resident, they would open it, but they usually require high deposits. When you think about offshore banking, obviously you might come across a question, why would you bank somewhere else? Now, there can be a number of reasons, but some of the most important ones for global citizens are definitely diversification, meaning currency diversification, geographical diversification, not relying on one government, not relying on one system, not relying on one kind of economy, basically. So diversification can be in many, many different shapes and forms, and it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. It can provide you with higher interest rates as well, and overall, you're able to go and choose some safer banks and some more stable banks in a more stable economy and a more stable environment, which can help you protect your assets and protect your money. Now, one of the questions that we often get about offshore banking, and namely banking in Switzerland, is like, can I hide my money overseas? And the answer to that is no. Days when you could do that are long gone, and there's virtually no secrecy anymore in the banking world. And that is because of the CRS, or Common Reporting Standard, and for US citizens, FATCA. So what that means is that usually most countries in the world are CRS compliant, and those that accept US citizens are FATCA compliant. So that means that they essentially have the obligation to let your country of nationality or country of residence know that you have a bank account with them. However, even though Swiss banks are CRS compliant and even some are FATCA compliant, they also practice a certain level of secrecy where your information, your bank account, and your information of the money that you keep in that bank are not available to everybody in that bank. So only a certain number of people in the bank will have access to your information. So that gives you kind of an additional layer of protection, because in most normal banks, any bank teller can access your information, see what your balance is, see your name, address, and so on. However, because Swiss banks are famous for some privacy and also wealth management, they have this policy where only a number of people in the bank can access your information. So if that's something you're comfortable with, if that's something you're looking for, then banking in Switzerland might be a good choice for you. Now, as I mentioned, offshore banking can be a first step, but it will not help you in reducing taxes. So having an offshore bank account will not help you reduce your taxes. And more so, banking in Switzerland will require a high minimum deposit. Now, what that usually means is that the minimum deposit can go anywhere from $500,000 up to $5 million, $10 million, or $20 million, depending on the bank and depending on what type of account you want to have. So as you can see, it can be very expensive to bank in Switzerland. Obviously, fees are a different story, but minimum deposits can be very, very high. And it just will come down to whether you want to keep that money in a bank account or not. Also, while Swiss banks are very secure, they're named one of the safest banks in the world, they also have their own bureaucracy. They have a very strict due diligence. You will have to go on calls with the banker to open a bank account. So you will have to navigate through a lot of bureaucracy in order to open a bank account. Once you're in, you will get full access to their services. You will get a private banker, and you will have a wide range of services available to you to choose from. Now, while Switzerland may not be a universal answer to offshore banking, it is kind of considered one of the most reputable places to bank in, and it is considered one of the least corrupt countries in the world. So in that sense, your money is probably safer in some Swiss banks than it is in some other jurisdictions and other banks. Now, as I mentioned, while Switzerland can be a great option for some, it's reputable, least corrupt, it has great services, there are also some downsides and might not be a best answer for everybody. First of all, it's enduring a certain pressure from the United States and other Western European countries. So in that sense, if you're looking for a place that is not affected by some of the decisions or some of the things that happen in US and Europe, Switzerland might not be the best place for you. Second, while wealth management for some can be saving grace, for some others it can be a burden, because there are many entrepreneurs who want to have control of their money. They want to invest their money in what they want. But in Switzerland, it works in a way where you get your personal banker, they manage your money, they kind of have the attitude that they know the best, and they don't want you to worry about anything. They will handle everything for you. So if you're somebody who likes control, you want to be able to just do what you want with your money without a person telling you, hey, this might be better or you should do this, then Switzerland might not be the best option. Lastly, as mentioned, Switzerland can be very bureaucratic. The process of opening a bank account can be very long. They conduct their due diligence on many layers. If you're not ready for that, then you should probably skip Switzerland and opt for another jurisdiction, perhaps in an emerging world country where you can open an account easier. Now, in addition to that, not all banks in Switzerland will accept US citizens. So that's one of the cons of US citizens, as I mentioned. Banks that accept US citizens are FATCA compliant. So banks that don't want to be FATCA compliant will not accept US citizens. So that kind of makes it easier, because every bank that accepts US citizens has to report that and has an obligation to share the information with the United States. And there's a handful of banks in Switzerland that are doing that. So there's only a handful of banks in Switzerland that will accept US citizens. Now, as I mentioned, while Switzerland can be a great jurisdiction for banking, it will probably not be for everybody. And nowadays, Switzerland does have competitors such as Singapore, UAE, or some other Eastern European countries that will offer people access to different services at a lower price point, meaning lower minimum deposit, and in an easier way. Now, the best way to start with the offshore banking is first to basically create your offshore banking strategy. Put on a piece of paper, what are your goals, what are your requirements, what are you willing to put in order to make that happen. Then you're going to go and try to find a bank that matches those requirements. It might not necessarily be a bank in Switzerland. It might be a bank in Georgia. It might be a bank in Singapore, for example. But the important thing is that you make that first step. Once you have found the bank or jurisdiction that you want to open a bank account in, then you will have to collect documents, apply for the opening of the account, put the minimum deposit in, and once everything is set up and working properly, you can make use of your offshore account and start building up on that and stop relying on just one economy and just one country. If you're interested in hearing more about offshore banking, like this video and follow us for more tips.